Right, welcome to this week's edition of the Old Poetry Podcast. And today's guest is a diagnosed narcissistic psychopath. And he is an author of The Ultra, Knowing the Narcissist. A little bit different to my usual guest, but Mr. HG TUDOR, how you doing, pal? All right?
Hello, Chris. I'm very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me on your podcast.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much for taking the time to come on. As I said briefly then off air, I talk about with a lot of the guests how we talk about someone's growing up and their background. Obviously, it's a little bit different with yourself because you don't like to show your face and you don't like to give too much away about yourself. Is there what's the reason why you don't show your face and you don't talk too much about yourself in that sort of way?
Well, I talk a lot about myself in terms of what I am and how I behave and the things that I've done. I tend to avoid certain specifics, and the reason being is that what I do professionally would be compromised by people knowing what my actual identity is. So that's why I don't show myself. That's why I don't provide certain specific details in relation to myself. And also, I want it to be about the actual information that I'm conveying. I know people are interested in me and I know people are curious about me, but a lot of it is about I want people to focus on the information, not necessarily me. And so when I create my videos, naturally when I write, you don't see me, you don't need to know anything other than what I am. And when I create the videos, it's simply a case I want people to listen to what I'm telling you, and that's accentuated by the fact that you don't see me. I want you to listen.
Okay, that makes sense. I fully understand that. You're kind of passing out the information there and you want people to take it in, and as opposed to being kind of fascinated by your life story itself, if that makes sense.
Yes, I recognize that there are people who are very curious about my life story, and I do provide glimpses into it. So I've spoken about my familial relations from time to time. I've spoken about aspects of my childhood, but that's more to get people to sort of understand. So in terms of my readership and viewership, there are those that just want to understand about narcissism and psychopathy. There are those that are interested in my story, almost like my origins and why I am the way I am and what I do on a daily basis. And then there are others that are interested in, I've got a problem that relates to narcissism. I want you to help me solve it. So people come for different reasons.
Right. Okay. Excellent. So the best place to start there is can you tell us what a narcissist actually is?
Certainly. A narcissist is somebody that has narcissistic personality disorder. So it's described as a disorder. And it's essentially a self-defense mechanism. And the way that I explain it to people to help them understand is that the narcissist is driven to pursue what I call the prime aims. Those are four things. So that's the narcissist must have control over the person that is on the radar. So that might be the person that they're sat with, or the person that they're thinking about, or the person that's on the telephone to them, or the person that's walked past their window. So they have to have control. The narcissist is also driven to pursue fuel from them. Fuel is the lifeblood of the narcissist. This is essentially an emotional reaction generated by the narcissist actions. So, if the narcissist punches you in the face and you go, ow, you've given the narcissist fuel. If the narcissist calls you an effing wanker, that's fuel. If you say to the narcissist, I love you, that's fuel. If you're having sex with a narcissist and you say, ooh, give it to me, baby, all of that, you're providing the narcissist with fuel. If you make the narcissist a cup of tea, that's fuel. If you praise the narcissist painting, that's fuel. And the narcissist needs that fuel to validate their existence. It is what powers the narcissist, that's why I call it fuel. The narcissist also seeks character traits from other people, which the narcissist basically takes and passes them off as their own, and residual benefits. And residual benefits covers anything from managing a facade, having access to networks, access to information. Money is a big residual benefit. Pleasure, in terms of the pleasure one gets from sex. So the prime aims is the destination. And what the narcissism does is it drives the narcissist to achieve those prime aims. And it does so with a variety of feelings and thoughts that the narcissist experiences. And this means that the narcissist obtains those prime aims. Sometimes it's just one, sometimes it's all four, from whoever they're dealing with. And to do that, that means they're manipulating a person. And in order to be as effective as possible to get to those prime aims, that means the narcissist has no emotional empathy. The narcissist has no conscience or guilt or sense of remorse. The narcissist will have a high account of themselves. The narcissist may, not always, behave in a grandiose fashion. So narcissism is basically a coping mechanism for a certain group of people who have developed in a certain way because of a genetic predisposition towards narcissism, combined with the environment in which they found themselves as a child. And that created narcissism. And the narcissism is there to help them cope. It's there to help them survive and thrive in the world. And it does so by making them pursue the prime aims and be manipulative towards people and have a lack of emotional empathy for them.
Wow. So it's definitely learned behavior then. It's not something you're born with.
It is created. So certain narcissists that are aware, and they are rare beasts, will observe certain behaviors and know what they're doing and know why they're doing it. But the vast majority of narcissists don't know what they are. So their narcissism makes them think that they're doing something for reason A, when in actual fact, they're doing it for the prime aims. So it will make the narcissist, for instance, think, I'm doing this gig for charity because I'm a good person. The real reason they're doing it is they are controlling people by doing that gig. They're gaining fuel by people reacting to them doing that gig. And they might have been paid some money for doing it, which is a residual benefit. The unaware narcissist does not think, right, I will invite my friends round for a dinner party because I need to control them and I need to draw fuel from them. He will think to himself, I'm a great host and I'm great fun to be around, so I'll invite these people over for a dinner party. But his narcissism is driving him to do it because every single thing that a narcissist does in relation to another human being is driven by the prime aims. There's no altruism. There's no kindness. It's not love. It's about the prime aims. So I often give this example. If I'm on my own and I pour myself a drink of mineral water, why did I do that? I did it because I'm thirsty. That's nothing to do with my narcissism. If my girlfriend comes in from a run and she's perspiring, I pour her a drink of mineral water. Why? Because I'm kind? No. I did it in order to control her. She says thank you, showing she's under control in that particular moment, and her response gives me fuel. If I've got other people there who see me do it, that makes me look good in front of them, so it manages my facade. If it's just me and her and she comes in, she's perspiring, and I drink the water in front of her and she gets upset, I've done that for the purposes of controlling her by making her upset and drawing negative fuel from her because I've upset her by my selfishness. Again, I did it to pursue the prime aims. Every single interaction that a narcissist has with another human being or a contemplated interaction with another human being is about the prime aims, nothing else. People often make the mistake of thinking that it's something else that's driving the narcissist's behavior. It isn't.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of, it's kind of difficult for me to kind of wrap my head around that a little bit. So when and how did you realize you were a narcissist and you had this disorder?
Well, I've always known that I've been different. I've always known that I have been special and set apart. I knew from the interactions that I had with my siblings that I saw things differently to the way that they did. I knew that there were certain things that, for want of a better description, I got off on that they didn't, that made me different. And the first time that I became aware of the fact that there was a label for what I was when a former girlfriend of mine, who was a psychology graduate, explained to me that she saw that I was both psychopath a narcissist. And I said, oh, that's very interesting. So I said, tell me more, because naturally I'm always interested to hear more about me. So she told me, and I said, well, thanks for sharing that with me. I'll see you around. Of course, I wasn't going to say to her, you're absolutely right, because that would transfer power to her, and that threatens my need for control. What I recognized was there was force in what she was saying. I recognized much of what she was saying, and I thought, right, now I have a label for it. And thereafter, it has been confirmed to me by diagnosis as a consequence of my interaction with formal medical professionals. So I've always known I've been different. I've always understood myself to a significant degree. I've learned more about myself as time has gone on. The way that my narcissism and psychopathy functions is I've essentially been allowed insight into it. And there are other aware narcissists and there are other aware psychopaths, but most narcissists are unaware.
Yeah. So how would what advice would you give to someone if they think they may be kind of have narcissistic traits or think that they may be a narcissist? Because like you said, it's difficult because the way your brain works to kind of not necessarily, would you say admit it, or kind of, is that the right term, admit that you've got it?
Well, everybody has narcissistic traits, Chris. So you've got them, I've got them. Everybody has pride, envy, argumentativeness, vanity, etc. And some people have fairly few of those traits. Some people have lots of them, and they may be very strong. It varies. But there's a difference between having narcissistic traits and being a narcissist. A narcissist is somebody that's got narcissistic personality disorder. So you've got over a particular threshold. And essentially, if you know what you are, you won't need to question it. You'll recognize what you are. So you won't be going, ooh, could I be? So in the same way, I knew what I was. I just didn't have a label for it. So
Right.
I knew that I was manipulative. I knew I didn't care about people. I knew that I enjoyed their discomfort. I knew that I liked to play games with people. I knew I needed a reaction from people. And as time has gone by, I've come to categorize and classify those behaviors for the purpose of explaining them to other people. But I essentially knew what I was. People who think to themselves, "Ooh, could I be a narcissist?" They're not going to be one. Because if you are, and you're an aware one, you wouldn't be going, am I? You'd already know. And if you're an unaware narcissist, you never, ever sit and think to yourself, could I be one? Because your narcissism won't let you contemplate it. Because it blinds the narcissist to what they are. Now, an unaware narcissist might go to somebody else and say, do you think I'm a narcissist? And the reason they're doing that is not because they genuinely believe that they are one. They're doing it because it's likely that someone has accused them of being a narcissist, which threatens their need for control. And they go running to somebody else to ask them, expecting them to turn around and go, good Lord, no, you're not. Which then allows them to nullify the initial threat to control that arose from the accusation. So it's self-serving. It isn't a genuine inquiry. It's linked to the manipulation and the necessity of that prime aim of control. So anybody that sits there thinking, could I be a narcissist? The short answer is you won't be, because by virtue of the fact that you're considering it, it demonstrates you can't be one.
Right. Okay. Because I've done quite a bit of reading into it, and I find the topic fascinating because I kind of said to you off here, a lot of people turn around and go, their exes, they think their ex is a narcissist. And having reading into this, I have questioned, I've looked and gone, am I a narcissist? Because like you say, it's a normal human kind of thing. But now you've explained it, I think that makes more sense, that you're kind of totally unaware if you are an actual narcissist, aren't you? So
that's right.
It takes that almost. Sorry, go on.
Yep, and it is such as like you've just explained. It's commonly the case that a victim of the narcissist has often thinks that they might be one. Why? Narcissists see in black and white. Others see in shades of grey. So non-narcissists have the capability to think, could I be? Oh, hang on a second. Because there are lots of behaviors that a narcissist will engage in, Chris, that other people can do as well. The behaviors aren't exclusive to narcissists. Everybody can tell a lie. It's just that narcissists tend to be habitual liars. Everybody could engage in physical violence, but they don't do it repeatedly because they're driven by fury. They might do it because they're laboring under a mistake. They might be doing it because they're acting in self-defense. They might be doing it because it's state-sanctioned and they're allowed to because they're part of the armed forces, etc. Whereas with a narcissist, their use of physical violence, the driver is the pursuit of the prime aims. So often people will go, hang on a second, I've listened to HG's videos and, oh no, I do some of these things that he talks about. I must be a narcissist. No, all that's happened is you are doing things which are similar to narcissists, but your driver for doing them will be completely different from that of a narcissist.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Like you say, a lot of people will have them traits because they're human, they're kind of natural traits, aren't they? A lot of them, but it's how you use those traits, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to simplify it for my brain.
Yeah, there's nobody that walks the earth who has never told a lie or has made a mistake or has lost their temper or has said something unpleasant to somebody at some point. Or so there isn't this sort of living saint that walks the earth. And people sometimes think that because, oh, I've done things which are similar to that of the narcissist, I must be one myself. But it goes much further than that. And it also segues into another point that you touched on earlier, Chris, is that there are a lot of narcissists around, and there are actually more than people realize. But it has become a bit of a go-to these days to say to somebody, oh, you're a narcissist, when what they're really describing is somebody who's done something that they didn't like, and it just becomes almost a knee-jerk reaction. Just because somebody's behaved in a way you don't like doesn't make them a narcissist. There's a whole set of criteria that they have to achieve in order to get to that label.
Yeah, no, that kind of makes sense. Like you say, every person you come across as like their ex is a narcissist, when really, like you said, they may have some traits which is fairly normal, but it's just, they've kind of been annoyed or pissed off at them for things that they've done, which, yes, I get that. It does make sense. So,
and also, obviously, let's not lose sight of this. There are many unaware narcissists that will go around labeling non-narcissists as narcissists because from their point of view, they see them as the problem. And if they've learned a bit about narcissism, which some unaware narcissists do, they invariably point the finger at that ex was a narcissist, and that ex was a narcissist, and my mum's a narcissist, and my friend's a narcissist, and my teacher was a narcissist. And it's like, yeah, okay. They start labeling lots of people as being narcissists. And a lot of these unaware narcissists go and create YouTube channels believing themselves to be the victim, and in actual fact they're not, and that they end up spreading a lot of misinformation because they think they're a victim, and in actual fact they're an unaware narcissist talking about narcissism, but from the perspective of a victim, and they portray it incorrectly.
So would you say it's quite difficult to spot a narcissist then?
No, it is at first. Nobody spots a narcissist straight away without knowing. You don't think, oh, am I dealing with a narcissist? Some people have no comprehension of what that is. And if you were to ask many people, they would just say somebody who loves themselves a lot. You know, they really think they're great. And it's much more
generalized terms, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And once you've accessed my work, it becomes pretty easy to spot them because I tell you all of the behaviors that you can see. And the point is that you need to look at somebody's behavior over a sustained period of time, because anybody could act in a similar fashion to a narcissist in one moment. So there could be, as I alluded to earlier on, there could be different reasons why that person's behaving that way. So you need to see a sustained pattern of behavior over a period of time. But when you know what to look for, it actually becomes very clear.
Yeah, I did read about one of the traits that, I don't know how true this is, because I don't know how you'd be able to as a narcissist be able to spot it, but I did hear that, or read that, narcissists tend to pick people that they can easily manipulate with, and people with kind of mental health. And obviously I spoke to you before, I think you're aware that the podcast, one of the goals of the podcast is to raise a bit of awareness with mental health issues, in all walks of life. And I think you tell me better than most, is there a link there between narcissist and obviously narcissism, mental health disorder, so to speak? is it that narcissists do they manipulate people? Can they pick out people that have kind of mental health issues, maybe ADHD, and that do they kind of use those people to manipulate? And is that something you've come across? If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Let's go back to the prime aims, which is the engine that drives the behavior of the narcissist. The two most important aspects of that are control and fuel. So if you want to control somebody, you need to find various methods of doing so. And narcissists, for want of a better description, will sniff out people who are easily controlled. And people who are easily controlled are empathic individuals who have an addiction to narcissists, which makes them easier to ensnare and keep ensnared. And within that, people with vulnerabilities, because that vulnerability can then be used by the narcissist against them. So some narcissists will come along appearing to be supportive. Oh, it's such a shame that you've got this issue. I'll help you. In other instances, they will recognize that person isn't particularly independent or strong, so that makes them easier. And it might be, for instance, that they're socially isolated, which means it's easier for the narcissist to monopolize their time for the purposes of controlling them. So vulnerable individuals in that respect are, in essence, sought out by the narcissist through targeting because it makes them easier to control, which is one of the prime aims.
Right. Okay. That definitely makes sense. So you're obviously, as we talked about, you're a diagnosed narcissist, psychopath. How do you go into relationships without kind of damaging the person you're in a relationship with?
Well, whether they're damaged or not doesn't really concern me, because that's their problem and not mine. The fact is that initially, because that person will be painted white, they are seen as an asset. And therefore, there is much to enjoy about them. So the narcissist is driven by their narcissism to put that individual on a pedestal, which means that they will experience some form of love bombing. They'll be flattered, they'll be bought gifts, they'll be told how wonderful they are. Everything about them is seemingly fantastic. And that's done to enable the narcissist to get that person under control as quickly as possible. It's a little bit like if you needed to catch a fish, causing you to be ravenously hungry would drive you to catch the fish with a greater determination than if you'd got a full belly. So similarly, the narcissism causes the narcissist to look favorably upon that particular person in order to draw them in. And that can be into any relationship, not just a romantic one. And thereafter, when it is what I call the dynamic between the narcissist and the intimate partner primary source, which is a spouse, a boyfriend, girlfriend, cohab partner, that relationship will always turn sour, and you will enter what's called the sustained devaluation. And that's when that individual becomes painted black. And that's when the narcissist starts to abuse in a malign way and because there is no emotional empathy, if that causes damage to that individual, it doesn't matter, because the narcissist simply doesn't care. So when the narcissist appears to care when they're seducing somebody, it's just an appearance that is done to draw them in. It's not genuine. I always explain to people that the narcissist abuses you twice. The narcissist abuses you when you're seduced by making you believe that the narcissist cares about you, likes you, and loves you. The narcissist doesn't. It's just an artifice to draw you in. And then the narcissist abuses you in the more traditional sense by calling you names, hitting you, excluding you, stealing your money, triangulating you, subjecting you to circular conversations, etc., etc. So there are two broad brush forms of manipulation. Because again, whenever a narcissist is dealing with you, you're being manipulated, whether it's benign or whether it's malign, because the narcissist is not behaving in a genuine fashion towards you. They're friends with you not because they like you as a friend. They're friends with you because of what you can do for them, in terms of you must be controlled, you will provide fuel, you will provide character traits and residual benefits. You are a toaster. You're a television. You're a washing machine. You're an appliance which is there to serve the needs of the narcissist. You're not friends with your toaster, Chris. You don't say,
No.
"Come on, toaster, let's get down the dog and duck for a few pints tonight." Your toaster's there to do what Chris wants: put bread in, toast it. It's there to serve you. Human beings are seen in the same way as by narcissists.
Right. Okay. It's just a little bit, like I say, difficult to wrap my head, and I'm trying to word it without not repeating it. But like, so obviously, because you're very aware through your diagnosis, and obviously through the work and the research that you've done of what you have and the narcissist sort of and everything in general, do you kind of recognize? Are you able to recognize when you're kind of doing things of the, and why you're doing them, or do you still not realize at the time? Because obviously you seem very, very self-aware with your own condition, which you say is quite unusual for a narcissist, isn't it?
Well, it is unusual, but I'm not the only one. There are 7 billion people on the planet, so it follows that there are others that are aware, and there are some aware ones which talk about it. They use different language and terminology that I do. I've created my own lexicon to help people understand in a non-scientific way, because I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist. So I put it in a way that helps people understand the behavior with reference to what they witness. I understand why I do what I do. It follows as a matter of logic that, notwithstanding this high level of awareness, there may be instances whereby I might not necessarily recognize why I've done something, because there may still be it's like driving a motor vehicle where you've got your rear view mirror, you've got your wing mirrors, you're looking out of the windscreen, so you've got a good field of vision. Some people have a wider field of vision than others, but even when you have that wide field of vision, you still have a slight blind spot there. So although I might not be able to identify what it is, I understand as a matter of logic there may well be one.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm just trying to digest the information. It's it's a fascinating topic.
Well, it's like in essence, what many people struggle with, Chris, is the fact that I will drink a cup of tea, I go to the bathroom, cut me and I'll bleed. So I'm similar to you in that respect, but then I'm very different in the way that I see the world compared to you. And so what often causes a problem for people is they try to understand the narcissist by virtue of their own worldview, and that's completely the wrong way of going about it. They try and rationalize that person's behavior through their own prism of seeing the world. And instead, what you have to do is you have to make a shift in your perspective to understand the way that the narcissist sees the world. You don't have to like it, but you have to understand it, and then it starts to make sense. You then start to think, so it's a little bit like learning another language in a way, as you sort of take on board this almost sort of like quite alien-like behavior and understand, oh, right, so I thought they did that because of this. No, you thought that because you're applying your own mindset to it. Now you know that the reason the narcissist did it was because you threatened the narcissist's subconscious need for control. The narcissist's narcissism needed to nullify that control, so it caused the narcissist to get furious with you and accuse you of having an affair when you hadn't. That's the mechanism of getting that control back, which is the prime aims. Now you understand that. It may seem ridiculous to you, but you at least understand why it's happening.
Yeah. So what kind of, obviously there are people that will be in relationships with kind of narcissists, whether they're aware or unaware. What advice would you give to someone that they thought they were in either an abusive or a non-abusive relationship with a narcissist? How do they go about dealing with a narcissist, so to speak?
The first thing is to establish, are you dealing with a narcissist? Because there are people who are problematic in a relationship that are not narcissists, and it's something else that causes that behavior. It might be some other behavioral issue. It might be a mental health issue. It might be a temporary state of affairs. There's an external stressor. They're going through pressures at work, or they're being redundant, or they've got an issue with alcohol or such like. So the first thing is to establish, are you dealing with a narcissist? And I encourage people to utilize my narc detector service, where You receive a detailed questionnaire, you submit your answers to me, I analyze it and tell you, are you dealing with a narcissist? If so, why? And if you're not, I'll tell you why. And if you are, I'll tell you which type you're dealing with and the reasons why. So the first thing is work out, are you dealing with a narcissist? If you are, then the next stage is to apply the first golden rule of freedom, which is once you know, you go. You get out and you stay out. It's the principle of go-so, as I've coined. There is no point hanging around in a relationship with a narcissist because it's going to be problematic for you. Now, some narcissistic relationships are more problematic than others. So if you were to ask some of my ex-girlfriends compared to my friends will say, yeah, I have a great relationship with HG. He's a great guy. He's got a bit of edge, but he's never caused me a problem. Ask some of my ex-girlfriends and they'll say that I'm Satan personified. So there are different types of relationships that arise. The point is, if you're in an intimate relationship with a narcissist, you need to get out of it. And whatever is telling you that you need to stay is what I call is emotional thinking, because it's not logical. And I acknowledge that some relationships are easier to get out of than others. I know there are concerns about where do you live, what do you do for money. Children is a big issue as well. But none of those issues are insurmountable. And I've dealt with thousands of people in consultation who come to me thinking, I think I'm dealing with a narcissist, but I think the situation is a hopeless one. And I actually explain to them, with some effort, and with some willpower, and with some fortitude, you can actually move beyond that. And they do. But the basic principle is this. Ascertain, are you dealing with a narcissist? Because if you're not, different options are available to you to potentially resolve the issues that you're experiencing. If you are dealing with a narcissist, the narcissist is not going to change. You can't cure the narcissist. The narcissist isn't going to wake up and go, oh, I'm a narcissist, aren't I? I need some help. They will continue to do. You might get a period of time where the narcissist behaves themselves because the narcissist recognize it's sensible to do that, but then we'll revert back to the bad behaviors. It always happens. So the point is, when you realize you're dealing with a narcissist, you then need to make steps to get yourself out of that relationship and to stay out of it, because the narcissist may well try and draw you back into it. And they might try and do it straight away. They might try and do it years later.
Yeah. So, well, they kind of, there is no, I don't know, this sounds, I hope it doesn't sound patronizing, but is there no treatment for narcissistic disorders at all?
Sorry, Chris, I just lost you a bit there. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, certainly. I just, without sounding like patronizing, or is there any treatment for sort of narcissistic disorders of any shape or form?
No. There are some people who believe that narcissism can be treated. It can't. Those individuals are either honestly mistaken, or they've dealt with someone who actually wasn't a narcissist and changed their behavior, or usually they may well be a narcissist themselves and they're being grandiose, thinking that they can cure narcissists when you can't. Narcissistic personality disorder is basically hardwired into the DNA of the narcissist. And one of the aspects of it is this. Again, going back to the prime aims, what is the first one? Control. So if you say to a suspected narcissist, I think there's something wrong with you, I'll help you, the narcissism will basically say, that is a threat to control, reject it. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't need to change. So even if there was a means of changing the behavior, the problem is you can't get close to the narcissist to make it happen. So it's a twofold problem. The narcissist won't submit to it in the first place because either the unaware narcissist doesn't see there's a problem with them.
A bit of a delay there. Yeah, so it's a difficult one, isn't it? And it's a difficult one to approach.
Yeah, and an aware narcissist will simply go, well, I'm not going to allow myself to be subjected to something which might potentially cause me a problem. Any narcissist that goes to therapy just uses the therapy for their own purposes. and invariably cons the therapist into believing that the genuine victim is the antagonistic one, or an aware narcissist will just use it to make themselves more dangerous because they'll learn more about themselves. They'll learn more about victims. So it's a sort of hermetically sealed self-defense mechanism. And there are those that say, well, yes, you can treat it. You can't. And that's why the answer is always get yourself away from the narcissist. Don't try and engage.
Wow, that is kind of, yeah, it's obviously brilliant advice, and you know, it's good that you're kind of really kind of sharing this information, and it seems like I say it's coming from a good place. Only you know that if it's not, or if it is, or if you're using it for self gain. Again, that opens
Well,
up a whole
I
can of
am
worms,
using
doesn't it? It's
I am
difficult to.
using it I am using it for self-gain. I'm not telling people this because I care about them. I'm not doing it because I'm altruistic. Again, let's go back to the prime aims. Sharing this
Yeah,
information allows me to control people. I gain fuel by way of their response. I don't really need that from them. I get plenty of fuel in my personal life. It enables me to hear from people whose experiences might be a little bit different, which provides me with character traits and also the residual benefits. The biggest reason why I do this is it's a long way off, but at some point I'm going to die, and that's a threat to my control. So at the point that death comes for me with his adamantine scythe, I know that I've created a legacy of work that will live on after me. So I have outmaneuvered death, and I've nullified that threat to control. I also make money from this, which is a residual benefit. And also because of my psychopathy, I need to be stimulated. I have a very low boredom threshold. I get bored very quickly. And therefore, I am stimulated by talking to people, by resolving their difficulties, by learning about what their problem is and unraveling it for them. As also because of my psychopathy, I'm driven by the necessity of accumulation. I want more people to follow my work. I want more people to come and watch my videos. I want more people to spread the word of HG TUDOR. So what I do, although it helps people, so it's a win-win, it's still driven by self-interest. And I'm completely honest about that because I can be, because you don't know who I am. That's why operating behind my pseudonym is so effective, because it allows me to be this honest. If, for instance, Chris, let's say I'm called John Smith, I'm not, but let's say I am. I could never tell you all of this as John Smith, because that would threaten my need for control. But as HG TUDOR, I can tell the world all of this, and you all get to learn about narcissism and psychopathy, and your problems are solved, and freedom is achieved. And I get from the narcissistic side, the prime aims catered for, and the psychopathic side, what's called the necessary triad is catered for. So I get what I want as well. That's why I'm doing this.
wow, that's kind of mind-boggling, to be honest. It's like I keep saying, it's absolutely fascinating, and a brilliant insight, to be honest. So there's a few more questions. Like, I don't know if we touched on it earlier, but so are there different types of narcissism? I can't remember whether we touched on this or not, but I don't think I did.
So to help people understand about narcissism, I explain there are different types of narcissist. When people think about that narcissist, they often think about the self-absorbed guy who thinks he's really good looking, he's flexing his muscles in the mirror, you know, he thinks he's a bit of a ladies' man and all of that kind of thing. There are lots of different types. And I've created a categorization system. So there are what are known as cadres, which are the preferences. So that's somatic, cerebral, elite, and victim. And I've got videos about all of that, so people can, if they're interested, they can learn more about that from my various materials. And then there are the schools, which range from lower lesser, middle lesser, upper lesser A, upper lesser B, lower mid-range, middle range A, middle range B, upper mid-range, lower greater, middle greater, upper greater, and ultra. Those are all the different schools. They have similarities, they have differences. And again, that is done to help people understand that the narcissist will behave in different ways depending on what type of narcissist you're dealing with. Some people talk about grandiose narcissists or covert narcissists or vulnerable narcissists. I don't like those terms because I find them too wide. So, for instance, when you talk about covert narcissists, that would cover under my categorization 9 different types of narcissists. If you
Wow.
talk about grandiose, that would cover 1, 2, 3, maybe about 6 different types of narcissist. So in such circumstances, I don't like that terminology because it's ultimately unhelpful. And I've divided it up into schools. And again, if people are interested, they can access my blog, they can access my videos, they can go in the Knowledge Vault and find more material that explains more about these schools. So you learn the similarities and also the differences.
Wow, there's a lot of different types there. And I suppose, like you say, it's kind of actually pinpointing the different types without using such a wider spectrum, because you could probably narrow it right down like people have done, haven't they, with just sort
That's
of
right.
surmising, you know?
Yeah, because there are certain characteristics. So you have the mid-range school. So they all, for instance, will operate with a kind of facade. They will all have cognitive empathy, but no emotional empathy. But then you break it down that there are differences between the 4 sub-schools within that main school. And it's important to break it down because then people recognize, they will do this, but they won't do that. And I make it very clear to people that it is just as important to know what a narcissist will not do as to know what a narcissist will do. You need those 2 angles of knowledge, because a lot of time people think, oh my goodness me, this narcissist is going to pursue me to the ends of the earth and they're going to grind me into dust. No, that particular type of narcissist isn't going to go down that route, so you don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, no, it's see, I think that's really, really like important for people to understand the different types. And I know we touched on get out of a relationship with a narcissist, but sure, is there certain types of narcissists that make having a relationship sort of manageable, or is it a no-go if they're a narcissist? Or
No relationship, no intimate relationship with a narcissist is manageable. There'll be some people that
wow,
think that it is. They're deluding themselves. The fact is this: you are being abused. Sometimes people don't recognize that they're being abused, but they are. Sometimes people know that they're being abused, but they think they are to blame, or something else is to blame, so they stay within it. The fact is, you can't manage a narcissist. The narcissist is designed to be the controller, not to be controlled. The narcissist is designed to be the doer, not the done to. If you try and manage a narcissist, you'll fail because you're not designed to do it, and you're going up against somebody. And this isn't to say that narcissists are these arch uber villains that are sat there going, "Bah, I'm going to live in a hollowed out volcano and make your life hell." A lot of narcissists are simpletons and dickheads. They really are. And their
right.
lives are completely chaotic. But the problem is you get sucked into the chaos. So you suffer. So the answer is don't. Don't get involved. Don't try and manage them. You don't need to manage them. In the same way, if you've got a friend who behaved that way, you wouldn't be friends with them. So why are you staying with somebody in an intimate relationship when they behave that badly? But their emotional thinking makes excuses to keep them engaged. And they have to break that thinking. They have to go to the logic. For instance, I had a client. She spoke to me and she was crying. I said, "What are you crying for?" And she said, "Well, HG, I wouldn't expect a cold-hearted narcissistic psychopath like you to understand." I said, "I do understand. I want to see if you understand." She said, "Well, the narcissist is dead." And I went, "And?" I said, "I've got people who'd be giving their eye teeth to be in the situation you're in. They'd love their narcissist to go under a bus. And you're crying about the man that's abused you for 15 years. That's not logical. You should be cracking open champagne. You should be climbing to the top of your house, shouting from the rooftops, 'I'm free.' That's the logical reaction. But I miss him. What do you miss? Him punching you in the face? Calling you a whore? No. Right, well, what do you miss then? Well, he's quite handy. Oh, right, so that was worthwhile. That's worth grieving him. He put up a shelf. Well done." And eventually she saw the sense of what I was saying. And I wasn't doing it to belittle her, but what I do is I don't mess around. I'm direct. I'm not here to coddle people. I'm here to tell you how it is because they need to hear it.
Yeah, I sense that about you. I'm getting the directness there. But
Very, very perceptive of you.
Yeah, thank you. But obviously, yeah, like you say, it's even after they've kind of broke up with them, they've still got that control over them, haven't they? They've still kind of
Absolutely.
affected them emotionally to the point where they can't let it go, and they're still grieving for them or wanting them back. And it's like you say, it's when really they should be literally celebrating the fact that this person's out of their life and they can move on.
That's right. And there's a multitude of reasons why they do that. And many people who continue to be plagued by the narcissist, they're plagued not because the narcissist, as I say, is this arch uber villain that's everywhere. There are some that are like that, but most people will never ever come across them. The reason why they keep getting hoovered, pestered by the narcissist, is because they let it happen. Because they don't do the right thing. They don't do the logical thing. They don't implement a total no contact regime. And I have people that consult with me and they go, HG, I'm in no contact, but he keeps texting me. How do I make him stop? I said, that's not no contact. But they honestly think that it is. That is a schoolboy or schoolgirl error. If you keep open an electronic route with a narcissist, you're committing no contact suicide. You'll be hoovered because it's easy. It's a shot at an open goal. So there's lots of things that I tell people that they can do to implement that total no contact regime. And most people don't actually know what no contact is, not the proper version of it. And that's something I go into detail in consultations with.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, last couple of questions really.
Yeah.
Do you think being a narcissist has helped your career and life? And I know that's a difficult one because you've not really known any different. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Do you think like
yes, I do.
Being the way you are has helped?
Yeah, the what I do professionally is very much aided by my psychopathy and narcissism because it enables me to read people very quickly. It has caused me to. I'm very hardworking because I need the stimulation. I always have to win. I can't stand to lose, which is advantageous for what I do professionally. It makes me strive to be the best at what I do as well. So it has been entirely advantageous. The fact that I am not burdened by a sense of guilt or conscience or remorse is also particularly advantageous in what I do. There'd be people who would not be able to sleep at night. I can. I go out like a light and I sleep the sleep of the righteous until morning, and then I'm up and after them once again. So yeah, it certainly does help me. It makes me effective.
And I suppose it's a difficult one again because it's asking, do you enjoy being a narcissist? I suppose, but that's I don't know if that's a difficult question or not. Is it?
No, it's not. It's not difficult, Chris. I mean, I don't really enjoy things in a sense because I'm built differently in that regard. But to use it in the way that people would generally understand it, I would say, yeah, it's great being me. I don't get sad about things. I don't sit worrying about things. Certain things will irritate and concern me, but I'm very much a case of there is no point sitting and either sort it, do it, or jettison it. It's like when people get human beings, one of their biggest failings is preoccupation with the past. We don't own time machines. We can't go back and change it. So stop banging on about what happened last year. Either, if it's had an impact on you now, deal with the now and change it, or quit belly aching about it. Because you only come this way once and you're wasting your time moaning about what your mother said a year ago. It's pointless. So again, because of the way that I am, I don't engage in that behavior. So it allows me to get on with things and I'm successful. So I have a different standard of what enjoyment is for me compared to other people. There'd be other people who would look at my life and go, oh, I wouldn't want to be like that. I do know there are plenty of people who say, I wish I was more like you, HG, because I don't get anxious and I don't get preoccupied with worrying about things. And they see that as attractive. Of course, there'll be people who say, well, he's bound to say that. He's a narcissist. And I accept that observation. But I can only speak as what I am and that I get on with things and have a very effective life. And so, in effect, yes, I do enjoy my life as what I am. It's great to be me.
Brilliant. Well, like I say, them things you've just said there, I have to admire those things that you've just said, because to live in a life where you don't worry about things,
Yeah,
and and where you're constantly pushing forward and stuff, they will kind of, because a lot of things people worry and get anxious, and which creates a whole manner of kind of mental health issues. But if you don't have those kind of things, then it enables you to channel your energy into things that are making you a better person, or making you more successful.
absolutely right. I mean, I do deal with people in consultation that when I've helped them get away from the narcissist, I don't really like the term life coach, but it kind of moves into that area of applying my principles, which isn't, go around and be nasty to people, because I'm not like that.
Yeah,
I'm not nasty all of the time. That's a misconception. But it's
yeah.
about the effectiveness and using logical thinking rather than being governed by your emotions. So I help people with that, and that segues into alleviating certain mental health issues as well, enabling people to deal with that. So the principles by which I conduct myself are conducive to a better lifestyle for people.
No, absolutely. Well, I found the whole chat with you absolutely fascinating. I really have. I've been really excited about doing this podcast for like I say, because I really find that the topic really, really interesting. And thank you very much for your time. Obviously, how do people find you? I don't mean in the physical sense, because it strikes me that you're pretty hard to track down, but how do they find your kind of links and websites? Because you've got numerous books out, haven't you?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm pleased that it's been of interest to you. People who'd like to learn more about my work, you can go to narcsite, narcssite.com. That's my blog. There are hundreds of free articles there where you can read more about the behavior of me and others like me. I have 2 YouTube channels. The larger one is called HG TUDOR, Knowing the Narcissist, the Ultra. And there is a smaller one, which has just started, which is Narcissism and Psychopathy with HG TUDOR. Both of those channels cover the topics, but in different ways. There you will find thousands of videos covering so much about narcissism. You can also, by following the links in the video description or go to the menu bar at my blog, arrange to talk to me if you've got a particular problem that you'd like me to help you solve. If you think you're dealing with a narcissist, you can do the narc detector. If you'd like to understand more about you can do the empath detector to determine if that's what you are. And you can arrange an audio consultation with me. My books are all on Amazon. Just search for HG TUDOR there. And there's a vast array of free and paid for information that will help you understand plenty more about narcissism and psychopathy.
Absolutely fantastic. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and thank you very much for giving us some of your time, and like I say, a fascinating insight into narcissism. I'll have a quick 5 minutes with you off air, but it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.